By 1965, the Beatles were no longer just a pop phenomenon. They had conquered the charts, reinvented youth culture, and rewritten the rules of songwriting. But inside Abbey Road Studios, their ambitions were beginning to outgrow the limits of rock and roll. And in the middle of this quiet revolution, Paul McCartney brought in a song that would change everything. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy. It was a song so simple, and yet so perfect, that George Martin later said it was the moment I realized Paul was a genius. That song was Yesterday.
All my troubles seem so far away.
The story of Yesterday began not with inspiration, but with a dream. Paul woke up one morning in 1964 with a melody echoing in his mind. He stumbled to the piano beside his bed and played the tune before it slipped away. The chords, the structure, the flow. It was all there. But Paul wasn't sure it was his. He spent weeks asking everyone he knew, "Have you heard this before?" To his disbelief, no one had. He temporarily titled it Scrambled Eggs, nonsense lyrics to hold the melody in place. "Scrambled eggs, oh my baby, how I love your legs," he joked years later. Behind the humor, though, Paul knew he had something rare, a song that seemed to arrive from somewhere beyond him. When he finally played it for George Martin, the reaction was immediate. The producer sat silently for a moment, then said, "That's beautiful, Paul. But it's not a Beatles song. It's something more." At that time, the Beatles were known for electric guitars, energy, and youthful optimism. Yesterday was none of those things. It was intimate, just a voice and an acoustic guitar. Paul was worried it was too bare, too delicate. But George Martin heard potential. He suggested something radical for a pop record, a string quartet. Paul hesitated. No drums, no bass, no John, no George, no Ringo, just him, surrounded by 4 classical instruments. It sounded risky, even pretentious. "I wasn't sure," Paul admitted later. "I thought people would think it was too posh for the Beatles." But Martin persisted. He saw in Paul's melody something timeless, something that deserved more than guitars and amplifiers. Drawing inspiration from composers like Bernard Herrmann and the classical scores he loved, Martin wrote a restrained yet emotional arrangement. It wasn't flowery or sentimental. It was subtle, respectful, and heartbreakingly pure. When Paul heard it played for the first time, he was stunned. "That's it," he whispered. "That's the sound." On June 14, 1965, Paul entered Abbey Road Studio 2, alone. No band, no chaos, no screaming fans. Just a stool, a microphone, and a guitar. He sang live with the quartet in the room. No overdubs, no edits. Every breath, every crack of emotion stayed in the take. The result was unlike anything in pop music at the time. It was hauntingly vulnerable. One man laying his soul bare on tape. George Martin later said, "When Paul finished, I knew immediately this was something that would live forever." He was right. In a single afternoon, the Beatles had changed what popular music could be. When Yesterday appeared on the Help album, it didn't sound like anything around it. No guitars, no harmonies, just strings and sorrow. Even the other Beatles were unsure what to think. John Lennon, ever blunt, said, "That's Paul's song, nothing to do with us." Ringo added, "I didn't even play on it. I just sat there and listened." But George Martin understood. He saw beyond the absence of the band. He saw the evolution, from teenage idols to serious artists. "It showed me Paul wasn't just a great pop writer," Martin said later. "He was a composer. He was writing music that would outlive us all." Part of what made Yesterday so powerful was its restraint. There was no attempt to impress, no wall of sound, just melody and emotion. The song's lyrics came later, words of regret, of lost love, of nostalgia for something irretrievable. Yesterday, all my troubles seemed so far away. It's one of the most recognizable openings in the history of music, simple, direct, and universal. Paul said he wrote it thinking about the feeling of waking up one morning and realizing life had changed forever. Everyone could relate to that. And that's why Yesterday felt bigger than one man, or even one band. It was a song that belonged to the world. When the song was finally released as a single in the US, it became a phenomenon. It topped charts across the world and went on to become the most covered song in recorded history, with more than 2,000 versions by artists from every genre imaginable. But behind the statistics, the song had a quieter legacy. It redefined what pop could be. It showed that simplicity could be sophistication, that emotion could be art. George Martin later reflected, "Yesterday proved to me that Paul's genius wasn't just in melody, it was in emotion. He could make you feel something real with almost nothing at all. It was, in every sense, the moment the Beatles grew up." Decades later, Paul McCartney still closes many of his concerts with "Yesterday." Just his voice, his guitar, and a spotlight. No theatrics, no nostalgia, just truth. He once said, "It still feels as fresh as the day I dreamed it." And maybe that's because "Yesterday" wasn't crafted, it was discovered. It's not just a Beatles song, it's the sound of genius revealing itself. Gently, almost accidentally. George Martin called it the proof. Proof that pop could be art. Proof that Paul McCartney wasn't just writing hits, he was writing history. And when the final note faded that summer afternoon in Abbey Road, both men understood it, even if they didn't say it aloud. The world had just changed. Quietly, beautifully, forever.